The Queen Elizabeth had one, I've had one, and perhaps you've had one too. Mr. Toastmaster, the year that you just want to forget, nothing of value. The summer of 2018 for me was the beginning of a year just like that. I was standing on the shores of my life facing a new year, but what I didn't expect was that the water that was coming towards me was going to be full of waves of desperation and despair. The year began with a wave crashing over a good friend of mine, stealing his heart away, and we said farewell. The next month in January, two friends, a friend and a family member, Bruce and Uncle Brian, also passed with hearts that got washed away. A small reprieve, but what I didn't see out on the horizon, beyond the horizon, there was an earthquake which created a tsunami that crashed onto my shore in May, taking away our dear father. Are you getting the pattern of my life of 2018? Well, I got to the point in July when my aunt, who also passed away, also got washed away with the pain of old age. I said to myself, Philip, something's got to change. Something's got to give, and give it did. If you've stood on the shores of an ocean and watched the waves come towards you, you'll also be aware that as the water recedes back into the ocean, it causes a rip and usually takes something with it. For me, in August, that was the hand of my beloved of 5 years. She decided that our future was not to be and decided to move on. By the time I turned 60 in October, it was a very somber and sedate affair. Just a couple of few close friends gathered to celebrate 60 years in an absolute year of nothing. I said yes when my friend Paul invited me to Brisbane. In doing so, he said to me, I'm your friend, come and enjoy some time with me. When I said yes, I flew up there, we spent the whole weekend together. On Friday, I arrived nice and early and went to a boozy lunch. When we went to that boozy lunch, we got up and then we're heading to the next bar. And he said, just hang on a second, Philip, I need to go into the bookshop. I said, what bookshop, mate? You owe me a drink. Come on, let's go. He said, I just have to look at this book. And I said, okay. I said yes to the bookshop. Now, just a week or so beforehand, I'd met this lovely lady, but she was from a foreign country, Scotland. And the only things I knew about Scotland was a couple of things. There was some decent Scotch whiskey. They invented golf. And an Australian born in America played a Scotsman, William Wallace, in the movie Braveheart. With that much knowledge, I decided to go looking for the Scottish history section of the bookshop. Now, you've got to be surprised there even was a Scottish history section in the bookshop. But as I was flicking through the various titles, I came upon a book that just totally blew me away. It wasn't the title so much, it was the author. It was this book by Brené Brown, Braving the Wilderness. Now, you might think that deserves to be in the Scottish history section, but no. If you know who Brené Brown is, she has the 4th most watched TED Talk of all time, The Power of Vulnerability. Just think on that for a moment, the power of vulnerability. Well, in this book, Braving the Wilderness, she talks about the quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone. And I'm happy to admit that was just what I was looking for. And perhaps it's what you're looking for, and maybe it's what the world is looking for. Now, that video, Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability, is just ahead of the 5th most watched TED Talk of all time. 10 things you didn't know about orgasm. And I've used that video a number of, no, not that one, Nick, the other one, the Brene Brown video. I've used that in many of my leadership seminars to teach people about vulnerability. Well, obviously I bought the book and I read it several times. When I eventually returned back to Sydney, I was sitting with my sister and I was telling her about my lifesaver, Paul, lifesaver number 1. She said, I found this book and I read it and here it was and all these circumstances that came together. And as I looked at her, she said, you may not realize it, but in the space of just 7 months, our mother lost her brother, her husband, and her sister.
Yellow.
Well, I got to tell you, I started to climb out of the pool of pity that I was sitting in and started to get some action in my life. She said to me the next thing was, my company will pay for grief counselling for siblings who work for us. And I said, hang on a second, I'm a 60-year-old guy. I've had my own business for 20 years and I'm a master mentor. Of course I said no. Well, I could have said no, but in fact, I said yes. I said yes because my sister Magella was my lifesaver number 2. A couple of weeks later, I booked myself into counselling, and after a few weeks, a few sessions like that, it made a big difference. She gave me some strategies to work with my grief and all the issues that I've been facing in 2018. Now, it's not surprising, ladies and gentlemen, that if you've watched Bondi Rescue, they teach you if you get into trouble out the back, past the waves, you put your hands straight in the air and someone's going to come and rescue you. I didn't know that when it comes to life itself, you have to put your hand up so somebody can recognize you in trouble and they can provide you with that. My counsellor, Simone, was lifesaver number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, you may not be the person who needs to put your hand up, but perhaps you can recognize those people in your life, in your family, in your workplace. In Sydney, in Australia, we have Beyond Blue, Lifeline, and Are You OK? Those are the people that will eventually become our lifesavers, but they need you. They need you to rescue them from the waves. So reach out your hands, pull them back to the land, and say yes if you can.